Good morning, I'm Taylor Wilson, and today is Saturday, September 27th, 2025. This is USA Today's The Excerpt. Today, the Supreme Court won't make Trump spend billions in foreign aid approved by Congress. Plus, more Epstein documents have been released, and we've learned the identities of victims in this week's shooting at a Dallas ICE facility. The names of 3 victims shot by a sniper at a Dallas ICE field office have been identified to USA Today by a senior Department of Homeland Security official who spoke on condition of anonymity. The official didn't specify which of the victims is deceased, nor the extent of the injuries of the 2 wounded men who survived. But we now know that one was identified as Angel Garcia Hernandez of Mexico. This week, family members of a man identified as Miguel Angel Garcia posted a GoFundMe account identifying him as one of the critically wounded victims of the ICE facility shooting in Dallas. The account pleads for help for a father and husband who's in grave condition. The DHS source listed 2 additional victims. They are Jose Andres Bordones Molina of Venezuela and Norlan Guzman Fuentes, whose nationality wasn't identified. All 3 allegedly had criminal histories, though George Rodriguez, a Dallas-based immigration attorney, told USA Today that even if some needed to be deported, none of them deserved to die or be gravely injured by a sniper's bullet. ICE still had not publicly released the names as of last night. Authorities have been under pressure in recent days by immigration advocates and others to release the names. At a press conference on Thursday, Dallas FBI special agent in charge said authorities were still reaching out to foreign consulates and families of those injured or killed in the attack, and added that they deferred to ICE to determine when is the right time to release that information. Often, ICE publicly releases information on death and custody cases within a few days. ICE's own national detention standards require the agency put out a death report within 24 to 48 hours, said Katie Blankenship, director of Sanctuary of the South, which provides low-cost legal assistance to immigrants. The shooting occurred on Wednesday, and officials have called it a targeted attack on law enforcement. You can read more with a link in today's show notes. Democrats on the House Oversight Committee released documents yesterday from Jeffrey Epstein's estate that mention a number of high-profile figures. The 6 pages of documents include parts of Epstein's daily schedule in 2014, 2017, and 2019, a flight manifest from 2000, and more. I spoke with USA Today White House correspondent Zach Anderson for the latest. Zach, how are you, sir? Thanks for hopping on.
Doing great. Happy to be here.
So just starting here, what were some of the headline-grabbing parts of this latest document release?
It was just a handful of documents that were released. So there were some big names on there. You had Steve Bannon, who's a pretty high-profile MAGA leader. You had Peter Thiel, who's a billionaire who's donated to a lot of conservatives. You have Elon Musk, who obviously was a close advisor to Trump. They had a bit of a falling out, but may have reconciled here lately. One of the most recognizable business leaders in the world. You also had Bill Gates, the founder of Microsoft, and Prince Andrew, part of the British royal family, all listed in these latest documents that were released by House Democrats.
Well, as you mentioned, the Democrats here, how did Democrats, frame this release?
Well, they framed it as sort of part of their narrative that, trying to put pressure on Trump to put out more of these documents, and that kind of insinuating that he's hiding something here and saying, look at all these rich and powerful people who are in these records. We need to get to the bottom of this.
Well, as for the other side of the political aisle, what did we hear from the GOP-controlled Oversight Committee after Democrats moved to release these latest records?
Yeah, they said this was cherry picking, selectively releasing records. The House Oversight Committee got more than 8,000 documents in this latest release of records from the Epstein estate, and Democrats only released 6 of them. So this was a selective release, and Republicans on the Oversight Committee are basically saying you're not releasing any of the documents with Democratic names on them, and that some of this is old news.
All right, and going forward, what's next for Epstein records, Zach?
So there's still more pressure being put on to release more of the records. It looks like there could be a bill in the House that could force the release of these records. They're expected to have enough signatures, but the House Oversight Committee has also been pursuing their own release of the records and has subpoenaed them. So the Oversight Committee has said that they will be releasing the full complement of records from this third batch very soon.
All right, folks can read more with a link in today's show notes. Zach Anderson covers the White House for USA Today. Thanks, Zach.
Thank you.
The Supreme Court said yesterday that President Donald Trump, for now, does not have to spend billions in foreign aid approved by Congress. The move allows Trump to exert greater control over the government, even in areas like spending that the Constitution reserved for lawmakers. Over the objections of the court's three liberals, the conservative majority blocked a federal judge's ruling that the administration commit to spending $4 billion in foreign assistance before the funds expire next week. Chief Justice John Roberts had previously paused the ruling temporarily to give the court more time to consider Trump's request. The new order said the justices were not making a final determination, but the administration had sufficiently shown at this stage that the challenge brought by foreign assistance groups to Trump's spending freeze was improper. You can read more with a link in today's show notes. The Department of Justice is suing 6 states for not providing all the voter registration information they've requested. I spoke with USA Today government accountability reporter Erin Mansfield to learn more. Erin, thanks for hopping on.
Thank you for having me.
So what does this lawsuit from the Trump DOJ center on?
Yeah, so there are actually 6 separate lawsuits, and they're suing 6 separate states in federal courts within those respective states. So like a specific district in California, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and so on. And what they're doing is, I don't know if you remember from a few months back, but the Department of Justice started sending out letters to secretaries of state and other state-level election officials across the country, asking for copies of their voter rolls. Now, as a journalist, I actually request voter rolls fairly regularly. It's actually pretty common. But what the Department of Justice was asking for was additional information that would have come from the person's voter registration file. For example, a driver's license or a partial social security number, dates of birth, things that you might not see, say if you or I were to request the public file. Campaigns, they also request public voter files all the time, right? Because they want to know who they should try to convince to vote for them. And what happened is it's caused a lot of controversy because this is a lot more information than these states are used to releasing. And the ones who disagree with this are basically just sending their public voter files, the same thing you or I would get. And the Justice Department says that's not enough.
Okay, and how are the states responding here, Erin?
So in Michigan, the Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson, she issued a statement saying that all DOJ really was trying to do is turn over the private personal information of 8 million people. And so she told them they can't have it. But she said she did send them the publicly available voter file. So she said that the Department of Justice wouldn't give them a straight answer when her office followed up to try to find out why you need all this additional information. So she gave them the public version of the Michigan voter file.
All right. Well, we saw a March executive order that alleged previous administrations didn't do enough to keep non-citizens off the voter rolls and argued that having accurate voter rolls protects voters. Just considering that and where we are now with these suits, Erin, can you just reset some of the broader context and where you see this conversation going next?
Yeah, so this has been a big issue on the right, and it really was during the 2024 election. This idea of keeping non-citizens off the voter rolls. Now, I just want to be clear, non-citizen voting is incredibly rare, and when it does happen, it has been found that it might be by mistake. So there was actually a big movement in 2024 where Republican secretaries of state, such as the one in Georgia, were moving to get non-citizens off the voter rolls. Brad Raffensperger in Georgia I remember saying at a public event that they took some non-citizens off the voter rolls. They said, some of it might be an education issue or maybe they don't speak the language and they checked the wrong box when they went to get their driver's license. But this is a really big issue for folks on the right. There's not proof of some wide swath of non-citizens voting, but a lot of people really believe that to protect the integrity of elections, you need to make sure the voter roll is clean because the first step to getting a ballot is to be registered to vote. And if you're registered to vote and shouldn't be, they consider that an issue. So Donald Trump brought this issue back in his executive order in March that had a lot of things in it, but he criticized previous administrations for not doing enough to keep non-citizens off the voter rolls. So one of the things the Department of Justice has done is some of these letters, depending on the state, actually ask them about what efforts they're doing to keep non-citizens off the rolls. Others might be a little bit more administrative in nature. citing specific voter laws that require states to have a cleanup process, right? Because plenty of people leave the state. Most times when you leave the state, you say, okay, let me get my U-Haul, let me get all my boxes packed, but you're probably not going to call up the Secretary of State and cancel your voter registration. And so there are also people, most often on the right, for example, Judicial Watch, who are saying, the bottom line is that they need to be cleaning up their voter rolls. So this is a big issue for a lot of people. It is very divided, as a lot of things are in our country. And from here, we'll have to see how these lawsuits play out. About a week and a half ago, they announced 2 others. So it's obvious that DOJ isn't backing down on this issue, but we'll obviously have to see how it plays out in the courts.
All right, Erin Mansfield covers government accountability for USA Today. Excellent, helpful breakdown for us. Thanks, Erin.
Thank you.
Day 1 of golf's Ryder Cup is in the books, and Team Europe leads Team USA 5.5 to 2.5. The team golf event comes every 2 years, with the sides switching hosting duties. This year's action is being held at Bethpage Black, a golf course on Long Island outside New York City. You can follow along all weekend long with USA Today Sports. With the indictment of former FBI Director James Comey, some legal observers are questioning whether President Donald Trump has effectively weaponized the Department of Justice.
There are obviously examples of previous presidents making some questionable decisions, including former President Biden, who pardoned his son. But when it comes to President Trump, to have a president explicitly say, I want to go after these folks, I want to see them prosecuted, I think is the alarming piece.
That was USA Today chief political correspondent Philip M. Bailey, who sat down with my colleague Dana Taylor to talk about the dramatic indictment of James Comey, which has many worried that others on Trump's list of politicians for retribution may also see prosecutorial action soon. You can hear their full conversation right here tomorrow, beginning at 5 a.m. Eastern. And thanks for listening to The Excerpt. You can get the podcast wherever you get your pods, and you can always email us at podcasts@usatoday.com. I'm Taylor Wilson. I'll be back Monday with more of The Excerpt from USA Today.